Reflection on number 21, part 1, The Hurricane. A dark, empty, hollow space where something new, something truer is being conceived. This is the death of an old identity, the death of illusions, the death of attachment that no longer serves. There are letters that collapse time, letters where the now disappears completely and everything becomes sensation. This is one of them. Letter number 21, part 1, is written from the storm's eye, not just meteorological, but metaphysical. The hurricane serves as both backdrop and metaphor, a landscape of chaos so total that the external weather becomes indistinguishable from the internal. It is the moment when language begins to fall apart under the weight of what's happening in the body. And still, she keeps writing. Still, she breathes. The body in this letter is not poetic. It is desperate. It is raw. It is breaking open under the pressure of not knowing if she is still loved, still seen, still human in his eyes, not knowing if she will survive the abandonment, not knowing if the silence will ever end. This letter does not ask for clarity, it screams for it. And in that scream, something unnameable is born. This is the letter that makes you choose delusion or annihilation. For the writer, the hurricane doesn't just flood her city, it floods her reality. It sweeps away any remaining illusions she might have been holding onto about his character, his capacity, his intentions. This is the letter where she begins to confront not only what he did, but the reality that he might never offer an explanation, that there may be no closure, no repair, no reunion. And yet, there's also the flicker of another vantage point, the witnessing part, the one who says, there's a part of me that is witnessing it completely separately from a completely different vantage point. I like that part a lot. That one doesn't scream. She watches, and she's grown stronger. The shift from pleading to piercing. Where earlier letters searched for understanding or held out hope for reunion, this one begins to carve a different groove, ruthless clarity. It doesn't ask what happened anymore. It begins to say, this is what your choices have done, and I see them now without distortion. It's not detachment, she's still deeply in it, but the voice of the wise observer is beginning to rise. And with it, the ability to name things as they are, not as she wishes them to be. On his behavior, the cruelty in the silence is no longer deniable. This is the letter where the inhumanity of his choices becomes impossible to rationalize. Even B, the father of her child, who has often failed her, texted to check in during the storm. But he, who claimed to love her, said nothing, not a word. You don't even know if I'm alive. There's no excuse that makes this okay. Not growth, not ego, not spiritual bypassing, not even fear. The writer doesn't pretend this time. She names it as it is, a deliberate act of abandonment, a conscious refusal to connect, a cruelty wrapped in spiritual pretense. And she doesn't try to soften it anymore. The sacred ache, still loving in the face of annihilation. What makes this letter almost unbearable is not just the pain. It's the refusal to close her heart. Even in the middle of collapse, even while researching mental facilities and screaming into the void, there is still this line. She's in love with you. That love is not naive, it is not weak, it is devotional. It's what makes this letter not just a scream, but a sacred transmission. Because only someone who has fully loved can survive being fully erased and still choose to speak. Across the letters, this is descent, but not the end. If letter 20 was the rupture, letter 21, part 1 is the aftermath. This is what happens after the scream, when the nervous system can't hold anymore, when the psyche begins to fray and all that's left is breath, heartbeat, and ache. But it's also where the deeper architecture begins to reveal itself, the structure of the void, the scaffolding of unbecoming, the initiation underneath the devastation. The writer may not know it yet, but this is where the rebuilding starts. And in part 2, we begin to see what she chooses to do with the pieces.